Global tensions explode as Israel strikes Iran nuclear sites, targeting fears of all-out war. Europe rejects Putin's peace push, but is the US about to make a dangerous mistake? Meanwhile, Russia uses up 2025 to quietly build up forces in Ukraine, and Austria stuns the world by baking Kiev in a powerful blow to the Kremlin. What's behind these shocking moves? Could we be on the edge of something bigger? Watch the full story now, everything the headlines won't tell you. This is Ukraine Today, I'm Zurislava Kolesnikova, stay with us because it's far from over. Israel strikes Iran nuclear sites. Explosions, panic, retaliation. Israel's surprise airstrike unleashed Operation Risen Line, targeting top generals and nuclear tensions. Dozens dead, including children. Iran fires back with a wave of missiles. Is this the start of a full-scale war? Will Iran build a bomb now not to threaten but to survive? And can anyone stop that's coming? The world holds its breath.
Natalia Lutsenko. Tel Aviv did not sleep all night. Iran launched another barrage of missiles at Israeli cities. About 40. The city fought back, but there are fatalities and nearly 100 wounded. This is the bloodiest night since the start of the conflict. In response, Israel attacked targets in Tehran. Our Ministry of Foreign Affairs is clarifying information about Ukrainians on the territory of Israel and Iran. According to preliminary data the day before, as a result of an Iranian missile hitting a residential building in the city of Bat Yam, 5 of our compatriots were killed, 3 of them children. Natalia Lutsenko. Israeli special services have launched Operation Rising Lion against Iran, targeting the elimination of high-ranking military leaders and nuclear scientists. It appears that the number of casualties is in the dozens. The main and oldest Iranian uranium enrichment center in Natanz has suffered serious destruction. It is also known that the Israelis bombed Iran's second-largest uranium enrichment plant in Fordo again. This caused explosions and a 2.5 magnitude earthquake. The Israeli government states that the strikes have significantly disrupted Iran's plans to create a nuclear bomb. They say that now Tehran will need months to recover. This was a preemptive attack.
Announcer 2, Iran was one step away from creating a nuclear bomb. We could not allow this to happen. Our strike stopped them, but we understand. This is not the end yet. Iran will still respond. We are ready.
Natalia Lutsenko. Prime Minister Netanyahu assures that Israel attacks only military targets belonging to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Iranian army, as well as administrative buildings such as the Ministry of Defense. At the same time, maritime and land targets, oil storage facilities, radar systems, and aviation fuel depots were also hit.
Benjamin Netanyahu. We do not target civilians. They do. Tamra, Tel Aviv, Rishon LeZion strike our cities, while we target their military infrastructure.
Natalia Lutsenko. The Iranian Ministry of Health reports that since Friday, June 13, 224 people have been killed as a result of Israeli strikes. 90% of them are reportedly civilians. Human rights organizations are reporting hundreds of casualties. Now the Iranians are threatening to move from using old types of weapons in their attacks on Israel to new ones more deadly and on a larger scale. Their command addressed the Israelis leave the occupied lands because they definitely will not be suitable for your life in the future. That sounds like a threat to the entire country.
Hossein Mousavi, without a doubt, the scale of the devastating response from the brave Iranian fighters will cover all areas of the occupied lands.
Natalia Lutsenko. Tehran says it is acting within the bounds of self-defense.
Abdullah Rahman. Self-defense is a recognized principle in international relations. It is our legitimate right. We do not seek to escalate the war, but if Israel attacks our oil refineries, we will also strike at their economy.
Natalia Lutsenko. Earlier, the Israel Defense Forces officially called on Iranians to leave areas near military facilities that would be targeted. The Iranian authorities are ready to stop their strikes if Israel stops theirs. Iran alternates between threatening to destroy Israel and saying it does not refuse negotiations, but only on the condition that it is not prohibited from pursuing peaceful nuclear energy.
Abdullah Rahman, we are ready for an agreement that will not allow us to create nuclear weapons, but we will not accept any that deprive us of the right to peaceful nuclear energy.
Natalia Lutsenko. In Canada, where the G7 leaders have gathered, this war has pushed even Ukraine off the agenda.
Freddy Fastinson. Iran is a source of instability, and it must never have nuclear weapons. We are ready to seek a diplomatic solution, but now this has become a threat on a global scale. And those same Iranian drones are killing people in both Ukraine and Israel.
Natalia Lutsenko. Meanwhile, everyone is waiting for specifics from Washington. Before heading to Canada for the summit, the American president, as usual, says that it's time for an agreement.
Donald Trump. We are cooperating very well with Netanyahu. We respect each other. And yes, we support Israel. Will there be an agreement? I hope so. But sometimes they still have to fight it out first.
Natalia Lutsenko, this is how Donald Trump comments on the mutual strikes between Iran and Israel. And Europeans want to understand whether Washington actually has a real de-escalation plan, or if it is simply watching while Israel tries not only to disrupt Iran's nuclear program, but also to undermine its entire security system. In diplomatic circles, there are concerns that if Tehran sees Israel's goal as regime change, it could prompt Iran to officially begin developing nuclear weapons. And it will not be for science, but for survival. Natalia Lutsenko and Oksana Lototska, Fakti ICTV, United News.
Could Vladimir Putin become a peacemaker between Israel and Iran? European leaders say absolutely not, claiming he has no credibility left. But in a shocking twist, Washington isn't ruling it out. Is the Kremlin trying to reinvent itself? What's really behind Russia's sudden interest in Middle East diplomacy? And could this be Putin's more dangerous bluff yet? Don't miss what unfolding the global power game is shifting.
Putin is ready to mediate in the conflict between Israel and Iran, said US President Donald Trump in a conversation with an ABC News journalist. Let us recall that on June 14, the US president had a phone conversation with the Kremlin dictator, during which they discussed the escalation between Iran and Israel.
Yes, I would be open to that. He is ready. He called me about this. We had a long conversation about it. We talked about this more than about his own situation. I believe this will be resolved. Donald Trump, President of the United States, comment to an ABC News journalist on the social network X.
The President of the United States wrote on his social network that Iran and Israel should reach an agreement and that they will, just as he made India and Pakistan come to an agreement. At the same time, Trump clarified that at the moment the US is not involved in the conflict. Later, before departing for the G7 summit in Canada, the head of the White House stated that the US will continue to support Israel. Trump also expressed hope that a peace agreement between Tehran and Jerusalem would be reached soon.
Well, I hope there will be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what comes of it. Sometimes they have to fight, but we'll see what happens. I think there's a good chance there will be a deal.
In France, they do not believe in Russia's peacekeeping intentions. President Emmanuel Macron stated that Russia does not have the authority to mediate in the crisis between Israel and Iran.
I do not believe that Russia, which is currently involved in a high-intensity war and has not complied with the UN Charter for several years, can be a mediator. Emmanuel Macron, President of France, during a visit to Greenland, as reported by Reuters.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also criticized Putin's attempts to involve Russia in the negotiation process to resolve the situation in the Middle East. He noted that Russia's recent missile attack on the energy infrastructure in Kremenchuk is evidence of the cynicism of Kremlin policy.
And this is a Russian slap in the face to everything the international community is trying to do to stop this war. Right after Putin's conversation with Trump, after the Americans asked us not to strike Russian energy facilities, and at the same time Putin himself is trying to present himself as a mediator for the Middle East and is trying in any way to help his associates in Tehran. It's also cynical.
Meanwhile, Iran has stated that Tehran will not participate in any ceasefire negotiations with Israel or in a nuclear agreement with the United States as long as Israel's attacks continue.
The Iranians have informed Qatari and Omani mediators that they will only begin serious negotiations after Iran has completed its response to Israel's preemptive strikes. Iran has also made it clear that it will not negotiate while under attack, adds a source who spoke on condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the talks, according to the Times of Israel.
The Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that the Iranian parliament is preparing a bill to withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. However, they added that Tehran allegedly still opposes the development of weapons of mass destruction.
We were engaged in negotiations. In the midst of the diplomatic process, we were faced with an act of aggression from the Zionist regime. As I have stated before, we cannot imagine that such actions could take place without coordination, cooperation, and support from the United States. This, in essence, has deprived the diplomatic process and negotiations of their meaning and substance.
Let us recall that Israel launched a large-scale military operation called Lion's People on the night of June 13th. As part of this operation, strikes were carried out against Iran's nuclear military infrastructure. Since then, both countries have been exchanging missile and drone strikes on a daily basis. For example, Reuters reports that in total, since Friday, June 13th, 24 people have been killed as a result of Iran's attacks on Israel. According to IDF data, during this period, Tehran launched about 350 ballistic missiles, most of which were intercepted. Yulia Granovskaya for Freedom TV channel.
Is Russia using Zapad 2025 to quietly explain its forces in the war against Ukraine? Latvian defense officials believe so, warning that the joint Russian-Belarusian drills could mask large-scale reinforcements to the front lines. Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia are reinforcing their borders and testing emergency alert systems. Could provocations be coming, not just to Ukraine but to Europe's doorstep? What does Ukrainian intelligence know and how close is the threat really? Find out the details in our full report.
Belarus is relocating its upcoming military exercises deeper into the country, farther from the borders with Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky believes that Lukashenko's decision may have been influenced by the successes of Ukraine's defense forces in the Kursk region.
I think Lukashenko himself is afraid that we in Ukraine will view the presence of troops at the exercises as preparation for offensive actions. After our countermeasures in the Kursk direction, he understands what we are capable of if we sense a threat. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, at a meeting with journalists.
It became known back in 2024 that Russia and Belarus were planning to hold joint exercises on Belarusian territory. In October 2024, the general staffs of the armed forces of both countries began preparations for the maneuvers called Zapad 2025. They are scheduled to take place in September. And on May 28, Belarusian Defense Minister Viktor Krenin announced that the authorities had decided to scale back the scope of the joint exercises and move them further away from the western borders. He explained that this is Minsk's attempt to ease tensions in the region.
We have decided to reduce the scale of the Zapad 2025 exercise and move its main maneuvers deeper into the territory of the Republic of Belarus, away from the western borders. Viktor Krenin, Minister of Defense of Belarus, on Telegram.
The fact that they are now saying they will move it deeper into the country, there's no guarantee they'll actually do it. There's still quite a lot of time before September. So what will actually happen? Moreover, moving it deeper into the country away from the western border doesn't necessarily mean it won't be near the northern border with Lithuania or the southern one with Ukraine. Belarus isn't that big of a country. It's a one-day, maybe two-day march.
Recently, Russia began delivering military cargo to the Machulishi airbase in Belarus using Il-76 aircraft, according to the Militarny portal. They also used the heavy transport aircraft N-124 for these shipments. Machulishi airbase is one of the few in Belarus capable of receiving large military transport planes. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, this airbase has become a base for Russian military forces. The activity of Russian transport aviation was recorded by analysts from Aviviktor.
In June 2025, Russian transport aviation began flights to Belarusian airfields in connection with the Russian-Belarusian exercises Zapad 2025 scheduled for this fall. We have visualized some of the recent flights to and from Belarus and will continue to keep you informed about new arrivals. From a post by Aviviktor on the social network X,
the question of Belarus's possible direct involvement in Russia's war against Ukraine has been discussed since the beginning of the full-scale invasion by the Russian army. However, according to the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service, it is unlikely that the aggressor country considers Minsk a serious military ally. The Belarusian army is small, poorly equipped and trained, and the country's economy is completely dependent on Russia.
When in 2022 Russia, which had planned to finish the war in 3 days, started having problems with armaments, Belarus gave them everything it could from its warehouses. Ammunition, T-72 equipment, BMP-2s, sights, body armor, helmets and machine tools. Now they have also set up the production of ammunition which Russia lacks. Rocket, artillery, all the types needed for war. The Belarusian military-industrial complex has become an extension of the Russian one. About 80% of Belarusian defense industry enterprises are integrated into the Russian defense industry. In fact, it is essentially a single base. Oleh Ivashchenko, head of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine, in an interview with Ukrainian media.
Nevertheless, an invasion of Ukraine or the Baltic states by the Russian army from Belarus is one of the most likely scenarios. The head of Germany's Federal Intelligence Service has warned Russia is preparing to attack the territory of a NATO member state. Bruno Kahl believes that the Kremlin is seeking to expand its influence at any cost.
We are absolutely certain that the war against Ukraine is only part of a broader strategy. We have intelligence data that confirms this. Bruno Kahl, head of Germany's Federal Intelligence Service, in an interview with The Times,
Moscow is preparing to test the strength of Article 5 of the NATO Treaty on Collective Defense. According to the head of German intelligence, Russia does not need large-scale bombings to achieve this. It would be enough to send so-called little green men to Estonia, following the example of the annexation of Crimea, supposedly to protect the Russian minority, and then observe whether the President of the United States would actually send American soldiers across the Atlantic to defend a NATO partner. Victoria Smirnova for Freedom TV channel.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now. Austria, lone neutral, is now taking sides. During Zelensky's first wartime visit, Vienna backed the return of Ukrainian children taken by Russia, joined the Bring Kids Back coalition and signaled support for the new EU sanctions. Why now? Is even neutrality no longer an option? Is Putin's war? And what does it mean for Russia's influence in Europe? Let's break it down.
Volodymyr Zelensky mentioned that the last time he was here was in 2020 and life in Ukraine was completely different then. Although the war with Russia was already ongoing, it was not yet as bloody as it is now. Austria supports us and has taken our side since the very first day of this war. However, it supports Ukraine only through non-military means, because since 1955, after World War II, Austria has maintained military neutrality and is not part of any military alliance. At the same time, Vienna is ready to assist with our reconstruction, with issues of European integration, to support our accession to the European Union, and also to help our agriculture, and also to help return our children. This issue is very painful for Ukraine. Today, declaration was signed, albeit one of intent, between the diplomatic agencies. And President Zelensky stated that Austria will be among the 40 countries that will help make this happen. No specific mechanisms have been outlined yet. However, he reminded that Russia, and in fact this is the first time he has voiced such information, has been essentially blackmailing Ukraine, and that this time it offered to return the children in exchange for its soldiers. Let's hear the direct quote.
Volodymyr Zelensky, these are prisoners of war, and that's why it's impossible. We do not exchange them for anything. It is absolutely unfair. And to be honest, excuse my language, this is madness, which by the way was proposed by the Russians. We give them soldiers, and they give us children. It's simply beyond comprehension and outside international law. Well, in principle, that's just their way of life, and that's why the children must be returned. And here, well, probably the art of diplomacy is needed.
Olha, in fact, Austria is ready to act as a mediator in this matter. And today, Ukraine also asked Austria to assist in the return of fugitive oligarchs who are hiding on its territory. Volodymyr Zelensky also spoke about how to effectively put pressure on Russia, including through sanctions. Currently, the EU is preparing its 18th package of sanctions. Just recently, a conversation between Volodymyr Zelensky and the Chancellor of Germany concluded, and this very issue was discussed. Meanwhile, President Alexander van der Bellen explained what Austria's position in this war actually is.
Alexander van der Bellen, in the situation with Russian aggression, we have taken Ukraine's side, even though we are a neutral country. But it is unbearable to see photos of the aftermath of Russian strikes and to read news about it. All of this urges us to put an end to this conflict. Russia is clearly the aggressor, and I appeal to the leaders to start peace negotiations. Volodymyr Zelensky assured that Ukraine is ready for this.
Olha, and right after this visit, the president is flying to Canada, where the G7 meeting is already underway. He confirmed that he plans to meet there with the president of the United States, Donald Trump, and that Ukraine is ready to purchase weapons from the United States. He also spoke about what the minimum and maximum demands are for Ukraine.
Volodymyr Zelensky, it is very important for us to determine what specific pressure we can all exert to stop Putin, to make him cease fire, to end the war. We will discuss frozen Russian assets with the leaders. We will also discuss sanctions. We need price caps on energy resources, on oil, especially those produced by Russia. All of this is very important for us, and fundamentally it is a global question. How much longer will our partners continue to give opportunities to the Russians?
Yulia Yarmolenko. So those are the main news updates from Vienna right now. Yulia.
Yulia Yarmolenko, yes, from the news. About the most notable events at this moment from the journalists of ICTV and STB.
That's all for today on Ukraine Today. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real updates the world needs to hear. Like the video, share it with your friends and drop the comment your voice matters. And if you want to go even further, become a sponsor of this channel and help us keep telling the truth, no matter how loud the silence gets. Until next time, stay sharp, stay strong.